Look at this artifact right here. Scientists have been staring at it for decades, running every test imaginable, and they still can't tell you what it actually is. And that's not even the strangest part. There are 10 discoveries like this scattered across our planet, and the experts, they're completely silent about what they really mean. Some of these objects shouldn't even exist according to everything we know about human history. But they do exist. They're real. You can touch them, and nobody can explain them. I'm talking about archaeological finds that break every rule in the textbook. Objects created with technology we supposedly didn't have. Structures built with precision that modern engineers can't replicate. And when you start connecting these mysteries together, a pattern emerges that makes you question everything. So today, we're going through 10 archaeological discoveries that science refuses to explain. And by number 1, you'll understand why some researchers dedicated their entire lives to just one of these mysteries and still died without answers. The Baghdad Battery, a clay jar from 2,000 years ago sitting in a museum that might be an ancient electrical battery. German archaeologist Wilhelm Koenig found it in 1938. It has a copper cylinder, an iron rod, and evidence of an acidic solution. When modern researchers built replicas, they generated electricity, actual voltage, from a device that predates the first known battery by 1,800 years. The official explanation? Electroplating gold onto silver. Sounds reasonable until you realize there's zero evidence of electroplating in ancient Mesopotamia. None. No other batteries, no electrical wire, no understanding of electricity in their texts. It's like finding a smartphone in ancient Rome. Some think it was used for pain relief through electrical stimulation. Others believe it had religious purposes, creating a tingling sensation that priests used to prove divine power. But here's the real question nobody wants to ask. If they had the knowledge to create batteries, what else did they have? And why did this knowledge completely vanish from human history for nearly 2 millennia? That's not how technology works. Once you discover something useful, it spreads. It improves. It doesn't just disappear. The Antikythera Mechanism. Pulled from a shipwreck off Greece in 1901, and for decades it sat in a museum with scientists having no idea what they were looking at. A corroded lump of bronze with gears. When they finally X-rayed it in the 1970s, their jaws hit the floor. This device from 100 BCE is essentially an ancient analog computer designed to predict astronomical positions and eclipses decades in advance. It has 30 bronze gears arranged in a complexity that wouldn't be seen again until medieval clocks in the 1300s. That's a 1,400-year gap in technology. Imagine discovering an iPhone from the year 600 AD. That's what happened here. The mechanism tracked the Olympic Games, predicted lunar and solar eclipses, and calculated the moon's elliptical orbit using epicyclic gearing. The creator is unknown. The workshop that produced it has never been found. There are no similar devices from that period. Nothing in ancient texts describes how to build this. It appeared out of nowhere, demonstrated technology that shouldn't exist for over 1,000 years, then vanished completely. Derek de Sala Price said it was like finding a jet plane in Tutankhamun's tomb. How do you explain a civilization having this sophistication when everything else from that era is primitive? Puma Punku in Bolivia. Stone blocks that fit together so perfectly you can't slide paper between them. Some weigh over 100 tons. They're made of andesite and granite, some of the hardest stones on Earth. Perfect 90-degree angles. Surfaces flat to within a fraction of an inch across entire blocks. Perfectly circular, uniform drill holes. Official dating says 536 to 600 AD. Here's the problem. The civilization that built this had no iron tools, no wheels for transportation, no written language that we know of. Yet somehow they quarried, shaped, transported, and assembled these massive blocks with tolerances that modern stonemasons struggle to achieve even with diamond-tipped power tools. The nearest quarry is 10 miles away, for the red sandstone 40 miles away. How do you move a 100-ton block 40 miles without wheels, without metal tools, across mountainous terrain at 12,000 feet above sea level, where the air is thin and physical labor is exponentially harder. Engineers have proposed ramps, rollers, sledges, every conventional method imaginable. None of them explain the precision achieved. And here's what really makes you think. If this was built around 600 AD, why didn't this level of precision spread to other structures? Why does Puma Punku stand alone? It's like the knowledge appeared for one project and vanished completely. Sacsayhuamán in Peru. Stones weighing up to 200 tons, fitted together without mortar in a jigsaw puzzle pattern so complex that modern engineers can't figure out how it was designed. Each stone has multiple faces, each angling differently, yet they all interlock perfectly. No two stones are the same shape. The Inca are credited with building this in the 15th century, but even Inca legends say they found it already built. Spanish conquistadors thought it was built by demons because humans couldn't possibly move stones that large. One stone, the Stone of the Weary, weighs 200 tons and was transported from a quarry several miles away, lifted up a mountain, and placed with millimeter precision. In 2014, a team tried to move a 10-ton block using supposed ancient techniques. They barely moved it a few feet. That's with modern knowledge, well-fed workers, and unlimited time. The blocks at Sacsayhuamán are 20 times heavier. Then there's the vitrification, rock surfaces that melted and rehardened, requiring temperatures above 1,000 degrees Celsius. What generated that heat in pre-industrial Peru? And the earthquake resistance. Sacsayhuamán sits in one of the most earthquake-prone regions on Earth. Modern buildings crack and crumble. These walls? They've stood for at least 600 years, possibly longer. Every earthquake, the modern structures fail while Sacsayhuamán doesn't move. The stones are so perfectly fitted that seismic waves pass through without causing damage. The Voynich Manuscript, a book from the early 15th century written in a language that doesn't exist anywhere else in human history. Unknown script. Bizarre plant illustrations that don't match any known species. Astronomical diagrams that don't correspond to any known system. Drawings of naked women in strange plumbing-like tubes. Professional code breakers tried to crack it. Linguists analyzed it for decades. Computer algorithms have been thrown at it. Nothing. The text follows linguistic patterns. It has structure, repeated words, grammar rules. It's not random gibberish, but it's also not any known language, code, or cipher system. Carbon dating places the vellum between 1404 and 1438. The illustrations match that period's style. But what language gets invented for one book and never used again? Some think it's an elaborate hoax. But who would spend years creating 240 pages of consistent, structured content with detailed illustrations just to fool people? And if it's a code, why has it resisted every cryptographic technique we've developed over 500 years? Recent AI analysis suggested Hebrew with vowels removed. That theory collapsed under scrutiny. Others think it's a constructed language encoding medical or alchemical knowledge. But if you're preserving important information, why make it impossible to decode? The Voynich Manuscript represents human effort without apparent purpose. Somebody spent years creating this. Why? What were they saying? And what if it actually contains something important and we just can't see it? The Piri Reis Map from 1513 shows Antarctica. The problem? Antarctica wasn't officially discovered until 1820. That's 307 years too early. But it gets stranger. The map shows coastline details currently under ice. We didn't know what the coastline under the ice looked like until ground-penetrating radar in 1949. Piri Reis was an Ottoman admiral who compiled this from about 20 source maps, some dating back to Alexander the Great's time. Those source maps are now lost. The map accurately depicts South America's eastern coastline, the Caribbean islands, and a land mass where Antarctica should be, with geographical features matching the land beneath the ice. Charles Hapgood argued this proved an ancient seafaring civilization mapped the entire world before recorded history. Mainstream archaeology rejects this entirely. They say coastlines change, the map has inaccuracies, and confirmation bias makes us see Antarctica where it doesn't exist. But the counter-argument remains. If this isn't Antarctica, what is it? And why does it match geographical features we didn't discover until we had technology to see through ice? The map includes details of bays and inlets not explored until modern times. Either Piri Reis had access to incredibly ancient and accurate source maps, or we're experiencing the most convenient series of coincidences in cartographic history. The Yonaguni Monument off Japan's coast, a massive underwater rock formation that looks exactly like a stepped pyramid. Flat surfaces, right angles, columns, stairways, carved faces. It sits 75 feet underwater, covering an area the size of 2 football fields. Marine geologist Masaki Kimura studied this for over 20 years. He's convinced it's man-made, built around 10,000 years ago before sea levels rose after the last ice age. He points to tool marks, evidence of quarrying, designs that don't match natural erosion. Other geologists like Robert Schoch examined it and concluded it's entirely natural, sandstone that fractured along natural plains and was shaped by currents. Here's the dilemma. If it's natural, it's one of the most bizarrely geometric natural formations ever found. Right angles are rare in nature. Perfectly flat surfaces spanning meters are rare. All of these features together in one location? That pushes coincidence pretty far. But if it's man-made, it means humans were building monumental architecture 10,000 years ago, contradicting everything we think we know about civilization development. Japan has dozens of ancient myths about lost civilizations and underwater cities. Could these myths preserve cultural memory of coastal settlements that drowned when sea levels rose? The debate got so heated that Japanese archaeologists refuse to work with Kimura anymore. The academic establishment sees him as fringe. He sees them as closed-minded. And the monument sits underwater, waiting for definitive proof. The Longyou Caves in China. Massive man-made caverns carved from solid siltstone. Discovered in 1992 when a farmer drained a pond. Beneath the water, enormous underground chambers with carved pillars, rooms, bridges, pools. The largest cavern is over 2,000 square meters with 30-meter ceilings. Nobody knows who built them. Nobody knows when. Nobody knows why. Zero historical records. No legends. No stories passed down through generations. These massive construction projects just existed underwater with zero evidence of who created them or their purpose. The estimated stone removed is nearly 1 million cubic meters. Where did all that stone go? Usually you find quarried rock used in nearby construction. Nothing. The stone has vanished. The precision suggests advanced planning. Uniform chisel marks angled at consistent degrees. Evenly spaced pillars. The entire complex shows engineering sophistication. But here's what bothers researchers. Complete absence of mistakes or evidence of learning. When humans develop new techniques, you see evolution. Early attempts are crude, later attempts refined. These caves show no learning curve. They appear fully formed with consistent technique throughout. Either the builders already had significant experience, or these weren't the first caves they built, which raises the question of where the earlier practice caves are. Carbon dating is useless because there's no organic material in solid rock. Stylistic analysis is impossible because there's nothing to compare it to. The caves exist in historical isolation, a massive engineering project with no context, no precedent, and no explanation. Göbekli Tepe in Turkey, officially the oldest known megalithic structure in the world, dated to 9,600 BCE. That's 6,000 years before Stonehenge, built by hunter-gatherers according to mainstream archaeology. But that explanation breaks everything we thought we knew about civilization. The standard story, humans were hunter-gatherers, then developed agriculture, then permanent settlements, then surplus resources to build monuments. Göbekli Tepe reverses that completely. These were hunter-gatherers with no agriculture, no permanent settlements, no pottery, no domesticated animals. Yet they carved massive T-shaped pillars weighing up to 20 tons, covered them with intricate animal carvings, and arranged them in circular structures requiring planning, coordination, and massive labor investment. The carvings are sophisticated. Foxes, lions, scorpions, vultures, snakes, all rendered with artistic skill. Some pillars have human-like arms wearing belts and loincloths. The site covers 22 acres. Only 5% has been excavated. Ground-penetrating radar shows at least 20 more circles still buried. And here's what makes it truly mysterious. After centuries of use, the entire site was deliberately buried. Someone filled all the structures with tons of earth and rubble, preserving them perfectly but hiding them from view. Why would you bury your most important ceremonial site? What changed that made this place dangerous or forbidden? Klaus Schmidt believed it was a religious center where hunter-gatherer groups gathered for ceremonies. But that requires hunter-gatherers to have complex religious beliefs, organizational structures coordinating large groups, and astronomy knowledge since some structures align with celestial events. That's massive complexity for people who supposedly hadn't figured out farming yet. Some researchers now think agriculture was developed specifically to support the people building Göbekli Tepe. The need to feed large groups of workers led to the invention of farming, not the other way around. If true, it means religion and monument building drove civilization, not resource abundance. That's a complete inversion of historical models. And what if Göbekli Tepe isn't the beginning? What if it's just the oldest we've found so far? The site shows such architectural sophistication that the builders must have had experience. Where are the crude earlier attempts? What if there are older sites still buried? Sites that would push human civilization back even further into the past. These 10 mysteries share something in common. They don't fit. They exist outside the accepted timeline of human development. They demonstrate knowledge or capability that shouldn't exist when they do. Science works by testing theories against evidence. When evidence contradicts the theory, you change the theory. But in archaeology, changing theories means admitting we were wrong about fundamental things. Billions in education based on old models. Textbooks needing rewriting. Careers built on certain assumptions getting threatened. So instead of changing the theory, sometimes the evidence just gets ignored or explained away. I'm not saying aliens built these things. I'm not saying there was some lost super-civilization. What I am saying is that human history is far stranger and more complex than the simple progression we learned in school. These mysteries exist because we're missing pieces of the story. And until we're willing to seriously reconsider what we think we know, those pieces will remain missing. Subscribe for more mysteries that make you question everything.